They say a wedding is the happiest day of a woman's life. It's supposed to be the culmination of a dream, a moment frozen in time where everything is perfect. The dress, the flowers, the vows. But my wedding day didn't end with a shower of rice and a drive into the sunset. It ended with a microphone in my hand, a room full of 200 stunned guests, and a silence so heavy it felt like it could crush my ribs. I remember the smell of the reception hall vividly. It was a mix of expensive lilies, roasted chicken, and that specific, sharp scent of champagne. I remember the way the light caught the crystals on my bodice, making them sparkle like little stars. And I remember the look on my husband's face, my brand new husband of exactly 4 hours, when I stood up, tapped the glass with my fork, and burned our entire future to the ground. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't a mistake. It was the clearest moment of my life. Because 5 minutes earlier, I had seen something I wasn't supposed to see. I saw a small, brass object pass from the palm of the best man into the palm of the groom. A key, not a house key, not a car key, a hotel key. Specifically, a key to room 402 at the grandiose hotel across the street, the same hotel where his ex-girlfriend, Jessica, had checked in that morning. People ask me if I regret it, if I regret ruining the party, wasting the money, humiliating him in front of his grandmother. And I look them in the eye and say, the only thing I regret is that I didn't throw the cake at him, too. To understand why that moment shattered me, you have to understand who we were. Or rather, who I thought we were. My name is Clara, and for 3 years I believed I was living in a modern fairy tale. I met Mark at a coffee shop. A cliché, I know, but it was our cliché. I was the frazzled graphic designer who spilled an oat milk latte on his pristine Italian leather shoes. He was the charming architect who didn't get angry, but instead bought me a fresh coffee and asked for my number. Mark was perfect. That's the only word for it. He was steady. He was kind. He opened doors for me, remembered my friends' birthdays, and cooked dinner on Tuesdays because he knew I had late meetings. He was the kind of man my mother had prayed for. He's a keeper, Clara, my mom would say, watching him fix a leaky faucet in her kitchen without being asked. You hold on to him with both hands. And I did. I held on tight. I loved him with a quiet, fierce desperation. I had been hurt before, badly, by men who were chaotic and selfish. Mark felt like a safe harbor after a decade of storms. We got engaged on a snowy evening in December, right under the big tree in the town square. It was picture perfect. He knelt in the snow, ruining the knees of his trousers, and offered me a vintage sapphire ring that had belonged to his gray tant. I want to build a life with you, Clara, he had said, his eyes watering in the cold wind. A real life. No secrets, no games, just us. No secrets. Those words echoed in my head for months. I clung to them. The wedding planning was a breeze. Mark was involved in every detail. He cared about the appetizers. He cared about the playlist. He even cared about the font on the invitations. There was only one point of contention. One small, nagging snag in the fabric of our happiness. His best friend, the best man, Jason. Jason was Mark's college roommate, his business partner, and his shadow. Where Mark went, Jason followed. And while Mark was polished and responsible, Jason was wild. He was the eternal bachelor, the guy who drank too much at happy hour, the guy who made jokes that lingered just on the edge of inappropriate. I didn't hate Jason, but I didn't trust him. He had this way of looking at me, a smirk that said, "I know things about him that you don't." "He's just protective," Mark would assure me, kissing my forehead when I complained about Jason's rude comments. "He's seen me through the rough times. He's loyal to a fault. You just have to get to know him." "He calls your ex-girlfriend, the one that got away in front of me, Mark," I pointed out one night over dinner. Mark flinched. "He's joking, Clara. Jessica is ancient history, you know that." Jessica, that was the ghost in our relationship, Mark's college sweetheart. They had dated for 5 years, broken up, gotten back together, and then finally ended things 2 years before he met me. According to Mark, it was mutual. They wanted different things. She moved to London for her career, he stayed here. "She's just a friend now," Mark insisted whenever her name popped up on his phone's screen. "We send Christmas cards." That's it. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was the man who fixed my mother's faucet. He was the man who held me when I cried. The week of the wedding was chaotic, as all wedding weeks are. My house was filled with bridesmaids, tulle, and last-minute panic over seating charts. 2 days before the big day, we had the rehearsal dinner. It was at a lovely Italian restaurant downtown. The mood was high. Everyone was laughing, toasting, celebrating. I stepped out onto the patio to get some fresh air. The noise of the restaurant was overwhelming, and I needed a moment of silence. I was standing near a trellis of ivy, hidden in the shadows, when I heard voices. It was Mark and Jason. They were standing around the corner, smoking. Mark didn't smoke, at least not that I knew of. "You're sure she's coming?" Mark asked. His voice sounded tight, stressed. "She landed an hour ago," Jason replied, the flick of a lighter. "She's staying at the Grand, room 402. I booked it under my name just like you asked." My heart did a strange little flutter. Who was she? "Does Clara know she's in town?" Jason asked, a hint of mockery in his tone. "Of course not," Mark hissed. "And she's not going to know. It's just closure, Jason. I need to see her one last time before I do this, just to say goodbye properly." "Closure," Jason snorted. "Right, is that what we're calling it? You're playing with fire, man. Clara isn't stupid." "She trusts me," Mark said. And the way he said it, so confident, so dismissive, made my stomach turn over. "Besides, it's just a conversation. I'm marrying Clara. I love Clara." "If you say so," Jason said. "But Jessica didn't fly across the Atlantic for a conversation." I stood there, frozen in the ivy. The night air suddenly felt freezing. Jessica, she was here, in town, at the Grand Hotel. And my fiancé, the man who promised no secrets, was planning to see her. I wanted to march around the corner and confront him. I wanted to scream. But my feet wouldn't move. A wave of doubt washed over me. Maybe it was just closure. Maybe he just needed to look her in the eye and tell her it was over. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that Mark chose me. He bought me the ring. He was marrying me in 48 hours. I crept back inside the restaurant without them seeing me. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, pale, wide-eyed, terrified. "Trust him," I whispered to my reflection. "Don't ruin this. He chose you." I went back to the table. When Mark came back in 10 minutes later, smelling of mints and cold air, he kissed my cheek and told me I looked beautiful. I smiled. But for the first time in 3 years, I wondered if the man kissing me was a stranger. That doubt should have been enough to stop the wedding. But weddings are like runaway trains. Once they pick up speed, it feels impossible to pull the brake. So I put on the dress. I walked down the aisle. I said, I do. But I kept my eyes open. I watched everything. And because I was watching, I saw the handoff. The reception was held in a renovated barn. One of those chic, rustic venues with exposed beams and thousands of fairy lights draped from the ceiling like a net of stars. It was beautiful. It was exactly what I had pinned on my Pinterest board for 2 years. But as I sat at the head table, clutching a flute of champagne that I hadn't taken a sip of, the beauty felt mocking. Every time a guest came up to congratulate us, I felt like a fraud. You two are glowing, Aunt Linda gushed, squeezing my shoulder. To a lifetime of happiness, Mark's boss toasted, raising his glass. I smiled until my cheeks ached. I squeezed Mark's hand when the photographer asked for a loving look. But his hand felt damp. Clammy. Mark was agitated. I knew his body language better than I knew my own. I knew that when he was relaxed, he leaned back in his chair. When he was anxious, he tapped his left foot. Under the tablecloth, his left foot was tapping a frantic rhythm against the floorboards. Tap, tap, tap. He kept checking his watch. Not the vintage Rolex I had given him as a wedding gift that morning, but his phone, which he had hidden under his napkin. "Everything okay?" I asked softly, leaning in during the salad course. Mark jumped. He shoved the phone deeper under the linen. Yeah, of course, just adrenaline. It's a lot of people, right?" He flashed me that charming, boyish smile. The smile that had won me over in the coffee shop. But for the first time, I saw the strain around his eyes. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, toward the bar, toward Jason. Jason was holding court at the bar, loosening his tie, already 3 drinks deep. He was laughing loudly, slapping backs. But every few minutes, his eyes would dart toward our table. He would catch Mark's eye and give a barely perceptible nod. A signal. My stomach twisted. The memory of the rehearsal dinner conversation replayed in my mind on a loop. Room 402. Closure. She's here. I tried to tell myself I was crazy. He's your husband now, a voice in my head pleaded. He stood up there and vowed to forsake all others. He cried when he saw you in the dress. People don't do that if they're planning to cheat on their wedding night. But intuition is a persistent thing. It's like a pebble in your shoe. You can walk on it for a while, but eventually it breaks the skin. The dinner service ended. The DJ announced the speeches. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the best man." Jason swaggered up to the microphone, holding a glass of scotch. The room cheered. Mark shifted in his seat, his tapping foot accelerating. Jason's speech was typical. A few roasted jokes about Mark's college haircut. A sentimental story about how Mark helped him move a couch in the rain. "But seriously," Jason said, slurring slightly, raising his glass toward us. "Mark is the most loyal guy I know. When he commits to something, he sees it through, to the end." He winked at Mark. It wasn't a friendly wink. It was a conspiratorial wink. A wink that said, "We got away with it." Mark let out a breath he seemed to have been holding. He laughed, a little too loudly. Then Jason walked over to the head table to clink glasses with the groom. This was it. The moment. The room was dark, lit only by the fairy lights and the DJ strobes. Most people were watching the slideshow playing on the wall behind us, photos of Mark and me as babies. But I wasn't watching the slideshow. I was watching Jason's hands. Jason leaned in to hug Mark. It was a bro hug, a clap on the back. "Love you, man," Jason said, loud enough for the microphone to catch. But as he pulled away, his hand lingered near Mark's waist. I saw the glint of brass. It happened in less than a second. Jason's hand slid from Mark's shoulder to Mark's palm, which was waiting open under the table, shielded by the tablecloth. He pressed a small metal key into Mark's hand. It wasn't a modern plastic key card. The Grand Hotel was historic. They still used heavy, old-fashioned brass keys with tassels. I saw the red tassels swinging for a fraction of a second before Mark's fingers closed around it. Mark didn't look at the key. He immediately shoved his hand into his pocket. He looked up, his eyes scanning the room to see if anyone had noticed. He looked right at me, and he saw that I was looking right at his pocket. For a heartbeat, time stopped. The noise of the reception, the laughter, the clinking silverware, the Bruno Mars song starting up faded into a dull roar. Mark's face went pale. He tried to smile, but it looked like a grimace. He reached for his water glass, his hand shaking so hard the ice rattled against the glass. Clink, clink, clink. He knew that I saw it, or maybe he just feared it, but I knew. It wasn't speculation anymore. It wasn't paranoia. Room 402. The key. The ex-girlfriend across the street. He wasn't planning to spend his wedding night with me. He was planning to wait until I was asleep, or maybe feign illness, or maybe just go for a drink with Jason, and then slip across the street to get his closure. On our wedding night. The disrespect was so visceral it felt like a physical slap. He didn't just want to cheat. He wanted to humiliate me. He wanted to make me the fool in the white dress while he bedded the love of his life, one last time. Rage is usually hot. It burns. But this was cold. It started in my toes and crept up my legs like frost. It froze my tears. It froze my fear. It froze my love for him instantly, snapping it off like a dead branch in winter. I looked at the guests. 200 people. My parents, who had taken out a second mortgage to pay for this party. My college friends who had flown in from California. His grandmother, who was 90 years old and sitting in the front row, smiling toothlessly. They were all here to celebrate a lie. I looked at the cake in the corner. 5 tiers. Vanilla bean and raspberry. We were supposed to cut it in 10 minutes. Cut the cake, I thought. Smile. Pretend you didn't see it. Confront him tomorrow. Don't make a scene. That's what a good woman would do. A good woman would save face. A good woman would protect her husband's reputation, even as he shredded hers. But then I looked at Mark again. He was leaning over to Jason, whispering something urgent. Jason nodded and glanced at the exit. They were planning the escape. Something inside me snapped. Not a breakage, but a release. A lock clicking open. I wasn't going to be the victim in his story. I wasn't going to be the wife waiting in the hotel room while he visited his mistress. I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. Mark looked up, startled. "Clara, where are you going? The maid of honor speech is next." I didn't answer him. I walked past him. I walked to the center of the head table, where the DJ had left the wireless microphone on a stand. The room quieted down. People assumed I was making a surprise toast. They smiled expectantly. My mom beamed from table 3, holding up her phone to record. I picked up the microphone. It was heavy, cold. I looked out at the sea of faces. I looked at the fairy lights. I looked at the expensive centerpieces. Then I turned and looked at Mark. He was staring at me, his eyes wide with sudden, dawning terror. He knew. He looked at my face, void of any warmth, and he knew. He started to stand up. Clara, wait! I switched the microphone on. Screech, a burst of feedback whined through the speakers, making everyone wince. Sit down, Mark, I said. My voice boomed through the hall, amplified and crystal clear. He froze halfway out of his chair. He sat down. I'd like to make a toast, I said, turning back to the crowd. To the groom. The guests clapped politely, confused but supportive. To the man who promised just 4 hours ago to forsake all others, I continued. My voice didn't shake. I was channeling the energy of every betrayed woman in history. I'd like to toast his commitment to multitasking, I said, because it takes a special kind of talent to get married at 4 p.m. and plan a rendezvous with your ex-girlfriend at 10 p.m. A gasp rippled through the room. It started at the front tables and spread backward like a wave. The clapping stopped instantly. Mark's face turned the color of the tablecloth. Clara, stop, he hissed. You're drunk. I haven't had a drop, I said into the mic. But speaking of drops, Jason. I turned my gaze to the best man. He looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. You just handed Mark a key, I said. A brass key with a red tassel. To room 402 at the Grand Hotel. Jason turned pale. I'm guessing Jessica is waiting there, I asked. Is she wearing white too, or does she prefer black for funerals? Because that's what this is. The silence in the room was deafening. You could hear a pin drop. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I reached into my bodice. I pulled out the small, velvet box that Mark had given me that morning. A wedding gift necklace I was wearing. I unclasped it from my neck. I threw it onto the table. It landed in the butter dish with a wet thud. The wedding is over, I announced. Please enjoy the chicken. My parents paid for it. The DJ is paid until midnight. Dance, drink, have a blast. I looked at Mark one last time. He looked small, pathetic. I'm annulling this in the morning, I said. Don't bother coming home. I'll leave your bags on the porch. I dropped the microphone. Thump. And then I turned and walked out of the barn. I didn't run. I walked. My long train swept the floor behind me, collecting dust and confetti. I walked past my sobbing mother. I walked past Mark's horrified grandmother. I pushed open the double doors and stepped out into the cool night air. I was alone. I was single. I was humiliated. But as I looked across the street at the Grand Hotel, seeing the lights of the windows glowing in the dark, I realized something. I was free. There is a specific kind of clarity that comes after you burn a bridge. You expect to feel regret or panic or sadness. But standing there in the gravel parking lot, the night wind whipping my veil around my face, all I felt was the vibrating hum of adrenaline. It was the feeling of surviving a car crash. You check your limbs, you count your fingers, and you realize you are somehow, miraculously, still whole. Behind me, the barn doors burst open. The noise of the reception spilled out, a chaotic mix of murmurs, shouting, and the DJ awkwardly trying to transition into a slow song to calm the crowd. Clara, Clara, stop! It was Mark. Of course it was Mark. He was running across the gravel, his tuxedo jacket flapping open. He looked wild. His hair, usually gelled to perfection, was falling into his eyes. He didn't look like the confident architect anymore. He looked like a man watching his life drain away down a sinkhole. I stopped near my father's vintage convertible. The getaway car. We were supposed to drive away in later that night. I turned to face him. Don't come any closer, I said. My voice was lower now, stripped of the theatrical boom of the microphone. It was just cold steel. Mark skidded to a halt about 5 feet away. He was panting. He reached out a hand imploringly. "Clara, baby, please," he gasped. "You have to listen to me. It's a misunderstanding. A prank. Jason was playing a prank." I laughed. It was a sharp, jagged sound. "A prank. Giving you a hotel key to your ex-girlfriend's room is a prank." "Yes," Mark insisted, his eyes wide and frantic. "He's an idiot, you know Jason. He thought it would be funny to test me, to see if I'd take it. I wasn't going to go, Clara. I swear on my mother's life I wasn't going to go." "Show me your pockets," I said. Mark froze. "What?" "Show me your pockets," I repeated, stepping closer. "If it was a prank and you rejected it, give me the key. Let's go walk over to the Grand Hotel right now and ask the front desk who is in room 402. Mark swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed. His hand instinctively went to his right pocket, the pocket where I had seen him shove the brass object. He covered it, a protective reflex. I threw it away," he lied. "Inside, in the trash." "You're lying," I said. "You're lying to me in my wedding dress. Do you have any idea how pathetic you look?" "Clara, stop being crazy," he snapped, his desperation turning into anger. That was Mark's tell. When he couldn't charm his way out, he bullied his way out. "You just humiliated me in front of my boss, in front of my grandmother. You ruined everything over a paranoid delusion." "I didn't ruin it, Mark," I said calmly. "I just announced the reality. You ruined it the moment you texted her back." Just then, the barn doors opened again. My maid of honor, Sarah, came running out. She wasn't running aimlessly. She was on a mission. Sarah was 5'2", but she had the spirit of a linebacker. In her arms, she was carrying the wedding card box. It was a heavy, wooden box with a slit in the top, filled with envelopes, checks, cash, gift cards. The financial recoup of the evening. "I got it," Sarah yelled, struggling with the weight of the box. "I got the loot." Mark's head snapped toward her. "Hey, put that down, that's ours." "It's hers," Sarah shouted back, dodging Mark as he took a step toward her. "Her parents paid $40,000 for this party, you cheapskate. This is a refund." Sarah reached the car and threw the box into the back seat. She looked at me, fierce and loyal. "Clara, get in. My car is parked around back, but we can take this one. Just drive." "You can't take the money," Mark yelled, moving toward the car. "That's theft." I stepped in front of him. I was wearing 3-inch heels, which put me eye to eye with him. "Theft?" I asked quietly. "You stole 3 years of my life, Mark. You stole my trust. You stole my ability to look at a man and believe a word he says. This box. This is just paper." I looked at him with absolute disgust. "If you want it back," I whispered, "you can sue me. But if you do, I'll subpoena your text messages with Jessica. I'll drag every dirty secret you have into open court. Do you really want to play that game?" Mark went pale. He stopped moving. He knew I had him. He knew that whatever was on his phone would destroy him far more than losing a few $1,000s in wedding gifts. He slumped, defeated. "I loved you, Clara," he whispered, playing the victim one last time. "No, you didn't," I said. "You loved having a wife. You loved the idea of me, but you never loved me enough to be honest." I turned around. I gathered up my heavy skirt, layers of silk and tulle that felt like a shroud, and I climbed into the driver's seat of the convertible. Sarah jumped into the passenger seat. "Go, go, go!" I fumbled with the keys. My dad had left them in the ignition for the getaway. I turned the engine over. It roared to life. I didn't look back at Mark. I didn't look back at the barn where my mother was probably fainting and the cake was sitting uncut. I slammed my foot on the gas. Gravel sprayed behind us as we peeled out of the parking lot. We drove in silence for the first mile, the wind tearing at my hair, ripping the veil loose until it flew away into the darkness like a white ghost. Then Sarah started to laugh. It started as a giggle, then turned into a hysterical, full-body laugh. "Did you see his face?" she gasped, wiping tears from her eyes. "Did you see his face when you said room 402? I started to laugh too, but my laugh sounded wet. And then, suddenly, I was crying. I was sobbing so hard I had to pull the car over to the side of the dark country road. I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel, my body shaking with the force of the grief. "It's over," I wailed. "It's all over." Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt and wrapped her arms around me. She didn't say it's okay. She didn't say he's a jerk. She just held me while I cried in a $40,000 dress on the side of Route 9. "I know," she whispered. "I know, let it out." I cried for the dream. I cried for the house we were supposed to buy. I cried for the children we were supposed to have. But mostly I cried because I knew I was right. And being right is a lonely, lonely prize. After 20 minutes, the tears stopped. I wiped my face with the skirt of my dress. Mascara stained the white silk. I didn't care. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked softly. "Not your apartment." "He has a key." "No," I said, sniffing. "We're going to a hotel." Sarah looked at me confused. "Which one?" I turned the car back on. A grim, dark humor settled over me. "The Grand," I said. Sarah's jaw dropped. "Clara." "You're not." "I am," I said. "I have my ID, I have a credit card, and I have a question for the front desk." "You're going to confront Jessica?" Sarah asked, looking both terrified and thrilled. "No," I said, putting the car in gear. "I don't need to talk to her. But I need to know for sure. I need to see the register. I need to close the door on this forever so I never, ever look back and wonder, what if it was a prank?" I drove toward the city lights. Mark thought he could have his cake and eat it too. He thought he could have his wife and his ex-girlfriend in the same zip code. Well, he was right about one thing. We were all going to be at the Grand Hotel tonight, just not in the way he planned. Walking into a luxury hotel lobby in a full ball-gown wedding dress at 11 p.m. creates a stir. I looked like a runaway princess, or perhaps a ghost. My mascara was smeared, my veil was gone, and my skirt was stained with gravel dust. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh. The air inside smelled of white tea and old money. Heads turned. A couple sitting by the fireplace stopped mid-sip of their wine. A bellhop froze with a suitcase in his hand. Sarah walked beside me, clutching the wooden wedding card box against her chest like a bomb she was afraid to drop. "Clara," she hissed, "everyone is staring." "Let them stare," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. I felt a strange, cold armor hardening around me. I wasn't the blushing bride anymore. I was a woman on a mission. I marched straight to the front desk. The concierge, a man with a perfectly waxed mustache and a name tag that read Henry, looked up. His eyes widened slightly, but his professional mask didn't slip. "Good evening, madame," he said, eyeing the dress. "How may I assist you?" I placed my hands on the marble counter. I didn't tremble. "I need to check a reservation," I said. "My husband, well, my ex-fiancé, Booked a room for a friend. Room 402. Henry typed on his keyboard. Click, clack, clack. I cannot give out guest information, madame. Privacy policy. I don't need her name, I lied. I know her name, Jessica Vance. I just need to know if she checked in. You see, she missed the wedding. I gestured to my ruined dress. I was worried something happened to her. It was a flimsy lie, but my appearance sold it. Who would question a bride looking this distraught? Henry hesitated. He looked at the screen, then at my tear-stained face. Pity is a powerful currency. Miss Vance checked in at 2 p.m., he said softly. She ordered room service an hour ago, 2 glasses of champagne and the cheese platter. 2 glasses. The air left my lungs in a sharp hiss. She wasn't alone. Or she wasn't planning to be. She was waiting. Champagne on ice. Cheese platter ready. She was setting the stage for Mark's arrival. It was the final nail in the coffin. It wasn't just Mark pushing for closure. It was a coordinated, romantic rendezvous. I closed my eyes. The pain was sharp, but it was clean. It sliced away the last lingering doubt that maybe, just maybe, I had overreacted. "Thank you, Henry," I whispered. I turned to Sarah. She looked ready to murder someone. "2 glasses," Sarah muttered. "That dirtbag." "Clara," a voice called out from the entrance. I froze. Mark stumbled through the revolving doors. He had driven here. Of course he had. He knew where I was going because I told him. Or maybe he came to warn Jessica. He looked frantic. He saw me standing at the desk. "Clara," he shouted, ignoring the bellhop who tried to intercept him. "You can't be here. You're making a scene." I turned slowly. The lobby went silent. "I'm not making a scene, Mark," I said, my voice echoing off the marble floors. "I'm checking out the amenities." He rushed up to me, lowering his voice to a desperate hiss. "You need to leave, now. If Jessica sees you." "If Jessica sees me, what?" I asked, stepping into his space. "Will it ruin your date?" "It's not a date," he pleaded, sweating. "I came to tell her it's over. I came to tell her I married you. You came to drink the second glass of champagne she ordered." I corrected him. He blanched. "How did you?" "I know everything, Mark," I said. "I know she checked in at 2. I know you've been texting her. I know you're a liar." I looked at Henry, the concierge, who was watching this drama with rapt attention. "Henry," I said loudly, "does this hotel have a penthouse suite available tonight?" Henry blinked. "Yes, madame, the presidential suite is vacant." "How much is it?" "It is $1,200 a night." Mark let out a choked laugh. "Clara, stop it. You don't have $1,200. We spent everything on the wedding." "You're broke." I turned to Sarah. "Sarah," I said, "open the box." Sarah grinned, a wicked, sharp grin. She set the wooden box on the marble counter. She popped the latch. Inside, envelopes were stuffed to the brim, checks from aunts, cash from uncles, gift cards from cousins. I reached in and grabbed a handful of envelopes. I ripped one open. A check for $200. I ripped another. 5 crisp $100 bills from my godfather. I slapped the cash onto the counter. "Here's 500, I said. I ripped another envelope. "Here's another 300. Mark stared, his mouth hanging open. "You can't do that. That's our money. That's for the down payment on the house." "There is no house, Mark," I yelled, finally losing my cool. "There is no us. This is severance pay. This is pain and suffering." I pulled out more envelopes. I found a thick one from his own parents. I tore it open. 10 $100 bills. I slammed them down. 1,200, I said to Henry. "And I want a bottle of your most expensive tequila sent up. Put it on his tab." I pointed at Mark. "No," Mark shouted, reaching for the cash. "You can't take that." Sarah body-checked him. "Touch her and I call the cops, Mark. I swear to God." Henry, realizing who the villain was in this story, swept the cash into his drawer with lightning speed. "Here is your key, madame," Henry said, handing me a sleek black card. "Top floor, elevators to your right, enjoy the view." I took the key. "Come on, Sarah," I said. We walked toward the elevators. Mark stood there, red-faced, humiliated, surrounded by staring hotel guests. "Clara," he screamed after me. "If you go up there, we are done. There is no coming back from this." I stopped. The elevator doors dinged open. I turned around. I looked at him, the man I had planned to grow old with. He looked small. He looked like a child whose toy had been taken away. "Mark," I said softly, "we were done the minute you took that key." I stepped into the elevator. Sarah followed, clutching the box of money. The doors slid shut, cutting off the sight of his furious, red face. As the elevator shot upward, the silence in the small metal box felt heavy. My ears popped. Sarah looked at me. "Did we just spend $1,200 of wedding money on a hotel room?" "Yes," I said, leaning my head back against the mirrored wall. "Are we going to get sued?" "Probably," I said. I looked down at my dress. The hem was ruined. The bodice felt tight, restricting my breathing. "Help me out of this," I whispered. "I can't breathe." "Not here," Sarah said. "Wait until we get to the room." The elevator dinged, penthouse level. We walked down the plush hallway. I swiped the key card. The door opened into a room bigger than my entire apartment. Floor to ceiling, windows overlooked the city skyline. There was a velvet sofa, a chandelier, and a bathroom with a soaking tub the size of a swimming pool. I walked to the window. I looked down. Way down below on the street, I saw a tiny figure storming out of the hotel lobby. It was Mark. He walked to his car, kicked the tire, and got in. He didn't go back into the hotel to see Jessica. He ran away, because that's what cowards do when their plan blows up. I turned back to the room. Sarah had dumped the contents of the box onto the coffee table. A mountain of envelopes. "We have to count it," Sarah said. "We need to know how much leverage we have." I sat down on the velvet floor. I picked up an envelope. "Let's count it," I agreed. But before I could rip it open, there was a knock at the door. My heart stopped. Mark, had he come up? Sarah grabbed a heavy crystal vase from the table. "I'll handle it." She walked to the door. She looked through the peephole. She froze. She turned back to me, her face pale. "Clara," she whispered. "It's not Mark. Who is it?" "It's a woman," Sarah said. "She's wearing a white robe, and she looks exactly like the photo Mark keeps in his old yearbook. Jessica, she was here at my door." There is a moment in every nightmare where the monster stops chasing you and turns around to speak. You brace for the attack, for the teeth, for the violence. But sometimes the monster isn't a monster at all. Sometimes it's just another victim wearing a different mask. "Open it," I whispered. Sarah looked at me like I had lost my mind. "Clara, if she's here to fight." "She's alone," I said, "and I'm wearing a 40-pound dress. If it comes to a brawl, you have the vase. Open it." Sarah took a deep breath, lowered the vase slightly, but kept her grip tight and unlocked the door. She swung it open. Jessica stood there. She wasn't wearing a funeral veil. She wasn't wearing a seductress's red dress. She was wearing a plush white hotel robe, her hair wrapped in a towel and fuzzy slippers. She held an ice bucket in one hand and a room key in the other. She looked up, expecting to see Mark. Instead, she saw Sarah, looking feral with a vase, and me, a disheveled bride sitting on the floor surrounded by thousands of dollars in cash. Jessica's eyes went wide. She dropped the ice bucket. Clatter. Ice cubes scattered across the hallway carpet. "Oh my God," she breathed, her gaze locked onto my dress. You're her." "I'm Clara," I said, standing up. My knees popped. I smoothed my ruined skirt. "I assume you're Jessica." Jessica didn't attack. She didn't sneer. She looked horrified. She backed up a step, her hand flying to her mouth. "He told me," she stammered. "He told me the wedding was off. He said he called it off 3 weeks ago." The air in the room shifted instantly. The anger I had primed, the rage I had ready to fire at her, suddenly had nowhere to go. "Come inside," I said. "Clara," Sarah hissed. "Don't invite the enemy in." "She didn't know, Sarah," I said, looking at Jessica's shaking hands. "Look at her face. She didn't know." Jessica walked into the suite, stepping over the threshold like she was walking into a crime scene. Sarah slammed the door and locked it again, still eyeing her suspiciously. Jessica stood in the middle of the room. She looked at the champagne bottle on the table, the one I had ordered. She looked at the wedding money. Then she looked at me. "He told me you broke up," Jessica said, her voice trembling. "He told me you were just roommates, that you were having trouble splitting the lease, but it was over emotionally. He said he was just waiting for the lease to end in June." "We bought a house in June," I said coldly. Jessica flinched. "He told me he still loved me. He's been emailing me for 6 months, begging me to come back. He said if I came to town, he would prove it to me. He said he would meet me tonight, too, to start our life together." "With a key," I said. "Room 402. "Yes," she whispered. "He said he needed to tie up some loose ends with his roommate, and then he'd be mine." She reached into her robe pocket and pulled out her phone. She unlocked it and handed it to me. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I scrolled through the thread. "Mark, she means nothing to me, Jess. It's just logistics. I promise by Saturday I'm a free man. Mark, I can't wait to hold you. I've missed you for 3 years. Mark, today, 4 p.m. Almost done with the final obligation. See you at 10. The final obligation. That was me. That was our wedding. While I was walking down the aisle, pledging my life to him, he was texting her, calling our marriage a final obligation before he could cheat. I handed the phone back to her. I felt sick. Not the adrenaline sick from before, but a heavy, leaden nausea. "He played us both," I said. Jessica sank onto the velvet sofa. She looked devastated. "I flew here from London. I quit my job, Clara. I put in my notice because he said we were moving to New York together next month." "He doesn't have money for New York," Sarah piped up, finally lowering the vase. "He spent all his savings on the catering for the wedding he just blew up." Jessica put her head in her hands and started to cry. It was a surreal tableau. The bride, the maid of honor, and the mistress, all trapped in a penthouse, united by the sheer audacity of one mediocre man's lies. I walked over to the minibar. I cracked open the tequila. I didn't bother with glasses. I took a swig from the bottle. The burn felt grounding. I walked over to Jessica and held out the bottle. "Drink," I said. She looked up, mascara running down her cheeks. She took the bottle. She took a massive pull. She coughed, wiping her mouth. "He's outside," I said. He ran away when I confronted him in the lobby. He's a coward, Jessica spat. The sadness was hardening into anger now. Good. Anger is useful. Sadness is just weight. So, Sarah said, sitting on the arm of the sofa. What do we do now? We have $1,200 of tequila, a penthouse, and a weeping ex-girlfriend. I looked at the pile of money. I looked at Jessica. We finish it, I said. How? Jessica asked. He thinks he can spin this, I said. He's probably calling everyone right now, my parents, his parents, telling them I'm crazy, telling them I had a breakdown. He's going to try to save his reputation. I looked at Jessica's phone. He texted you, I said. Do you have a picture of him, a recent one, from when you guys were dating? Hundreds, she said. And I have the wedding photos, I said. Or at least the ones people posted on Instagram with the hashtag number Clara and Mark forever. I pulled out my phone. We're going to post a joint statement, I said. Sarah's eyes lit up. Oh, I like this. He lied to you to get you here, I told Jessica. He lied to me to get me to the altar. He wasted our time, our money, and our love. He doesn't get to control the narrative anymore. I opened Instagram. I selected a photo of Mark kissing me at the altar from just 4 hours ago. Then, I asked Jessica to airdrop me a screenshot of the text message where he called me a logistical obligation. I created a post. Side by side. Image 1, the wedding kiss. Image 2, the text message sent at the same time. I drafted the caption. To everyone asking why the reception ended early, Mark didn't just have cold feet, he had a double life. He invited his ex-girlfriend to town, promising her a future, while marrying me to secure a dual income. He is not a victim. He is a fraud. And tonight, his wife and his girlfriend are enjoying the penthouse he couldn't afford. Number wedding over number room for 102, I showed it to Jessica. Are you okay with this? It makes you public. Jessica took the tequila bottle for another sip. Her eyes were hard. Tag me, she said. I tagged her. I tagged Mark. I tagged Jason, the best man who enabled it all. I hit post. For a second, nothing happened. The phone was silent. Then the first notification pinged. Like, comment, OMFG. Then another, and another. The phone started to buzz like an angry hornet. It vibrated across the coffee table. Calls started coming in. Mom, Mark's mom, Mark. He's calling, I said, looking at the screen. Mark hubby, I hadn't changed the name yet, flashed on the display. Put it on speaker, Sarah said. I answered, I put it on speaker. Clara, Mark's voice was hysterical. Take it down right now. You are ruining my career. My boss follows you. You should have thought of that before you handed Jason the key, I said calmly. I can explain, he screamed. Jessica is lying, she's crazy. Hi, Mark, Jessica said, leaning toward the phone. Her voice was cool, smooth, and deadly. Silence on the other end. Total, terrified silence. Jessica, he whispered. I'm here, Mark, she said. In the penthouse, with your wife, we're comparing notes. Turns out you reused the same pickup lines on both of us. You're the only one who understands me. Really. Get new material. You're together. Mark sounded like he was hyperventilating. We are, I said. And we're drinking your tequila. Don't call us again, Mark, either of us. If you do, we post the rest of the texts. I hung up. We sat there in the silence of the penthouse. The city lights twinkled below us. I looked at these two women, my best friend and the woman I was supposed to hate. We were an unlikely trio. But in that moment, the bond of shared survival was stronger than any wedding vow. I picked up the tequila. "To closure," I said, raising the bottle. "To closure," Jessica said. "To the single life," Sarah cheered. We drank. And for the first time all day, I didn't feel cold. I felt a fire starting in my belly. A fire that was going to burn down the old Clara. The one who settled. The one who ignored red flags and forged something new. The sun rose over the city at 6 a.m. It was rude. It was bright and cheerful, completely ignoring the fact that my life had detonated 12 hours earlier. I woke up on the velvet sofa. My neck was stiff. My mouth tasted like stale lime and regret. Across the room, Sarah was asleep in the armchair, clutching a throw pillow. Jessica had taken the bed. I stood up and walked to the window. The city below was waking up. Cars were moving. People were going to work. The world hadn't ended just because my heart had broken. I looked at the corner of the room. My wedding dress was there, heaped in a pile of white silk and tulle. It looked like a dead swan. I didn't feel sad looking at it. I felt light. It was the lightness of escaping a burning building. You don't mourn the furniture you left behind. You just thank God you got out with your skin. We checked out at 11 a.m. I didn't take the dress. I left it there, draped over the bathtub. I left a note for the housekeeping staff. "Take it, sell it, burn it, whatever you want. Just don't let me see it again." We walked out of the Grand Hotel wearing sweatpants that Sarah had door-dashed for us. We looked like a wrecking crew. Jessica hugged me in the lobby. It was a fierce, tight hug. "I'm going back to London tonight," she said. "I changed my flight." "Good," I said. "Go home. Find a man who doesn't need a key to a hotel room to commit." She smiled, a sad, crooked smile. "Thank you, Clara. You saved me from making a huge mistake. Again." "We saved each other," I said. She got into a taxi. I never saw her again. We didn't become best friends who get brunch every Sunday. That's a movie ending. In real life, we were two women connected by a trauma, and once the wound was cleaned, we needed to heal separately. But every year on that date, she sends me a bottle of tequila. No note, just the bottle. Mark didn't go quietly, but he didn't fight for long. The Instagram post went viral in our small community. By Monday morning, everyone knew. He tried to spin it at first. He told people I was mentally unstable. He told his parents I had misconstrued a business meeting with Jessica. But the screenshots didn't lie. And Jason, the best man, he folded immediately. When Mark's parents cornered him, asking if it was true, Jason admitted everything. He didn't want to go down with the ship. Mark lost his job 3 weeks later. His boss, a man with 3 daughters, didn't appreciate the public spectacle, nor did he appreciate having an architect on staff whose integrity was publicly shredded. He moved away 6 months later. I heard he went to Chicago. I heard he's dating again. I pity the next girl, but I can't save the world. I can only save myself. As for the money, I kept the $1,200 for the hotel room. I considered it a stupidity tax. But the rest, the envelopes in the box, I spent the next week writing handwritten notes to every guest. "Dear Aunt Linda, I am returning your generous gift. There is no wedding and there is no house. Thank you for coming to the show. Love, Clara." It was humiliating, yes. Licking those envelopes felt like tasting my own failure over and over again. But it was also cleansing. With every check I mailed back, I was buying back my dignity. It has been a year now. I didn't buy a house. I stayed in my apartment. I painted the walls a deep, moody blue, a color Mark hated. I adopted a cat which Mark was allergic to. I'm dating again. Gently, slowly. I met a guy last week. He's nice. He's a teacher. On our first date, he reached for his phone to check the time, and I flinched. The trauma is still there. The scar tissue is thick. But here is the difference. I listen to the flinch now. When I was with Mark, I ignored the tapping foot. I ignored the smirk on the best man's face. I ignored the whispers at the rehearsal dinner. I buried my intuition under layers of tulle and desperation because I wanted the fairy tale so badly. I don't do that anymore. I know now that a red flag isn't a challenge, it's a stop sign. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that toast. I think about the weight of the microphone in my hand. It was the heaviest thing I've ever held, but dropping it was the lightest I've ever felt. People called me brave for what I did. I don't think I was brave. I think I was just finished. I was finished being the supporting character in Mark's ego trip. I blew up my life, yes. I wasted money. I embarrassed my family. But I saved my future. A bad wedding is a tragedy, but a bad marriage is a life sentence. And I refuse to serve time for a crime I didn't commit. We are often told that love is patient, love is kind. We hear it at every wedding, and it's true, but we forget the other parts of love. Love is honest. Love is respectful. And love does not keep secrets in room 402. If you are watching this, and you have that nagging feeling in your gut, that pebble in your shoe that tells you something isn't right, please listen to it. Don't worry about the deposit on the venue. Don't worry about what your grandmother will say. Don't worry about the embarrassment of calling it off. Embarrassment heals. Regret lasts forever. I would rather be the crazy ex-fiancé who walked out of her own wedding than the miserable wife waiting at home while her husband works late. I chose myself that night, and every morning since, I wake up and choose myself again. So I want to ask you if you had seen that key. Would you have stopped the wedding right there in front of everyone? Or would you have waited until the guests left to confront him? It's a hard question. There is no right answer, only the answer you can live with. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all, and your stories give me strength. If this story resonated with you, please like the video and subscribe to Aliner's Chronicles. We share real stories of courage, heartbreak, and the truth that sets us free. Until next time, trust your gut and keep your eyes open.